Morning guys, Emil, Eurotrash Motorsports here. Today we're going to have a little bit of a fun little experiment. We're going to play with a 09 Tiguan that has the CCTA 2.0 turbo engine. Probably the most common failure, plenty of videos on YouTube. The previous owner obviously didn't bother replacing the timing chain or the tensioner, so the engine's more or less done. Now, we've done a couple of these, and although most dealerships and shops will tell you that you need a new engine, really it's not that bad. The valves get lodged in the head, so you just pull out the old valves, refurbish the head, put it back on. You might have some marks on the pistons, usually you do, which don't seem to cause any issues. Now, the challenge for today is to actually get the engine out. We've got a second issue here that's also extremely common for these cars. Looking at the bottom here, they tend to leak from the crankshaft seal between the transmission and the engine. Very common, and unfortunately for this, the 4Motion, a lot of stuff has to come out. Axles, obviously, transmission has to come out, etc., just to do that one seal, which is, you know, more or less $100. So the decision today was to try and pop the whole package out of the car and do the head and the transmission, split everything up, replace a bunch of seals, and put everything back together. So the question was, is it easier to get the engine out from the bottom or from the top? Now, it would appear as it sits, the engine will come straight out the bottom. Once we get the drive shaft off and disconnect a couple of things, the engine should be able to come off at the bottom. In that case, I don't have to remove the bumper or anything like that. If it does not, and it may not, but if it does not, then we have the option of pulling it out from the top. But as it stands, we're going to try and pull it out at the bottom. So this video will basically focus on essentially removing all of the auxiliary stuff. And as you can see, generally the engine has plenty of clearance on all sides to come out the bottom. The lift is not at the max. I should be able to pop up the engine. So stay tuned, and we'll see how that goes. Let's have a look at what we've got. So as you can imagine, most of the stuff comes out pretty easy. You know, you've got your coolant lines. At the front, we cleaned up. Radiator disconnected. The battery and the air intake come out very easily. Transmission is disconnected very easily. There's a couple of gotchas here that you gotta just pay attention to. So this cable has to get pulled out. This is your main line here. And as of right now, we're fighting with a tiny little connector that's basically down there at the bottom. I don't know if you're not gonna be able to see it, but it basically sits right under the manifold. So at this point, I'm gonna try and get it out without taking the manifold out. But if I can't, that's gonna pop right out. Otherwise, this is going to get cleaned out. So obviously, coolant lines, the shifter for the transmission, all of the air intake stuff, that's all coming out. On this side, what we're gonna do is actually we're gonna take the alternator out, and I'm gonna disconnect the air conditioning compressor, because what I'm gonna try and do is I'm gonna try and not have to unload the system and reload it with coolant, with Freon or whatever it's called there. So these two lines are the ones that are holding the compressor. So once I take the compressor off the motor, I'm gonna try and swing it or just attach it forward and then have the engine drop behind it. So that should save us some extra time. And I'll have a look on the bottom when we disconnect everything else. The one thing you're gonna see there, that's the exhaust, which is attached to the turbo. There's your exhaust right there. And it's 4 bolts attached to the turbo this way. So those 4 bolts are gonna come out. The exhaust will come out this way towards the tire, and then it will just stay in place. Should not cause any issues. All right. All right, this is the sensor I was talking about. So what I did is I took the alternator off, and that gives you access to that sensor that is way back there. All right, so basically with the alternator out, you can access that without any issues. Now, at the end of the day, you've got two harnesses here. Let's have a look. So you've got this harness, which runs on the bottom of the engine and goes towards the AC and obviously the alternator. And then you've got the big harness, which runs, kind of goes in and then also runs on top, which is for the injectors and for the coils. So with all of that basically out of the way, the moment the electrical comes out of the way, the rest should be fairly straightforward. Like I said, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to disconnect the compressor and basically pull it out to see how what we can do with it. All right, so we've got everything disconnected. Drive shafts are off. The rear main shaft is off. Most of that is pretty straightforward. The drive shafts just pop off once you take them off the bearing. So this is where we sit right now. This is what we're gonna do. So we've got the Tiguan on the ground, like this, and I've got the engine sitting on a dolly. So the idea is that we're going to undo the mount bolts there and there, and the engine is basically going to stay on the ground. There's nothing else holding it. The exhaust is a little on the back, but we just have to keep an eye on it. So we'll try and do that and we'll see how that goes. Okay, there's the engine. There's the car. So the only thing we would have done differently, we had to take the throttle body off, and this sensor here actually hit the fan, which we broke. So this would have worked out really well had we taken the sensor and the throttle body off. We would have been able to move the engine. At the end, we had to hook it up to the hook and actually tilt it up so that it came out. But otherwise, it came out pretty clean. There was no issues with the back. You just had to stay at an angle, whereas as soon as you bolt it to the floor, it goes pretty flat. So actually, when you let it go down, you have to put it at an angle so you can come out of the car. But we were able to save the compressor. There it is right there. And the rest of the wiring, as you can see.